Hello, and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. Now that we've covered the basics of input actions and methods, let's learn how to use them when working with a text file in Notepad. Picture the following business scenario. We just went through a rebranding process and the fonts have changed. Now we need to update our working documents and templates accordingly. This kind of process applies to every department. In this demo, we will add text to a Notepad file and perform font style and size changes. So, let's begin. To start, let's create a new project, name it Notepad Demo, and add a short description about the functionality of the project. The first thing that we'll do is to create a sequence, and then open the UI Explorer, where we select Indicate Element to select an element on the screen, in our case, Notepad. As you can see, we can also identify other elements of the Notepad's interface. Second thing, we'll add an Attach Window activity and select Notepad again. As a best case practice, we'll rename all of our activities accordingly. Next, we will search for a Type Into activity. Drop it into the Attach Notepad container and type in the text that we want to edit in Notepad. Now, let's also add text while running Notepad in the background. To do that, drag in a click activity. We will use it to indicate Notepad's minimize button and also add a type into, where we'll type another line of text that we want to edit. To add the new text on a new line, we go back to the first type into we added, select the plus button and choose Enter from the drop-down. We'll also change the properties of these three activities used. For the type into, select the Send Window Messages property, and for the click, we select the Simulate Click property. This way, they will work in the background. Let's see how we did so far. Press F5 to run it. If we open Notepad, we can see that both lines of text are there. Awesome! Now we jump to the text formatting process. First, we add a new click activity and indicate the Format button in Notepad. Second, we add an Attach Window and indicate the Format menu window. In order to be able to select this window, you have to press F2 for pausing the UI automation tool. It will be paused for a couple of seconds in which you are able to click on Format. The menu appears and you can select the Format menu window. Next, we will drag inside the Attach Window container a click activity. Indicate here the font as before and select the Simulate Click property. If we run it, we will see that the font window opens. To choose a new font and style, first we add a new Attach Window activity, indicating the font window. Second, we drag in a Type Into to search for the font that we want to use. In our case, Arial. We add another Type Into to search for the italic font style that we need. Next, let's change the font size. Pay attention, because here's where things get tricky. We want to store in a new variable the default text size from Notepad. Add 5, as we want the new font to be 5 points bigger, and return to Notepad with the new value. To do that, we use a getText activity to capture the default text size from Notepad and capture it in a new variable. Then we use a Type Into to define the new font size with the following method. we use int to convert the variable's value to integer, add 5, and convert it back to string using .toString. The last thing we do is to add a send hotkey activity, which will close the font window with the key Enter. And let's see how we did. And here is our text file with the font style changed. Great job! Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy automation! Hello, and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. Now that we've covered the basics of output actions and methods, let's see how we can use them to get text from a Notepad file. We already have our UiPath project created, so to start, let's create a new sequence and name it Get Notepad Text. If we navigate to the project folder, we'll find a Notepad file containing some text. The objective here is to retrieve this text by using the getText activity, and in order to do that, we drag in an Open Application activity. We indicate on the screen the Notepad application, and we rename the activity accordingly. We still need to add the name of the file which we want to open, so in the Properties panel, we update the Arguments parameter with the name of the notepad we retrieve the text from. What is RPA in our case? Now that we have our file open, we add a getText activity inside the Open Notepad application container. We choose Indicate Element inside a window on the Notepad app. And as we can observe, the element inside the app that contains the text is recognized and highlighted. We click on it. Now that we got the text, we have to store it somewhere. So create a new variable. Let's name it Retrieve Notepad Text and add it in the Output Value field in the Properties panel of the Get Notepad activity. Now we have the text. We just need to check that we've got the right text. So to do that, we add a log message activity under Get Notepad Text and specify as the message the retrieved notepad text variable. The last thing that needs to happen in our workflow is to close Notepad. For that, let's drag a close activity into our sequence. Again, we'll click Indicate on screen and select Notepad. Let's see how we did. And as we can see in the output panel, we've copied all the text from the Notepad file. Great! Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy automation! Hello, and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. Now, we previously practiced getText, one of the most used output method activities, but it extracts the text from one single element, and we might find ourselves in the need of extracting the text from a wider range of elements and their children. In that case, we can use the screen scraping tool. It offers 3 methods that can be used to extract the data: full text, native, and OCR. To start, let's create a new project and name it Screen Scraping Demo and add a description. Let's enter Screen Scraping Demo using My CRM app. Now we select the screen scraping wizard from the design menu bar. Let's take an example using this app here, My CRM. Suppose that we need to extract information about the address. Now we can indicate multiple areas of the My CRM application, but for this exercise, we'll use the address area. Depending on the screen scraping method chosen, the scrape result preview will vary. The native method will display all the information that is visible. If we choose the full text method and hit refresh, we'll see even the hidden information that is not visible for the user in the app. We can choose to ignore hidden, but we'll still get more info than with the native. Now the OCR method treats the indicated area as an image and tries to read the text. There are two OCR engines. The Tesseract OCR engine will return not much. The Microsoft OCR engine still doesn't return much information. It's recommended to use OCR as a last resort, or when we don't have access to the UI elements. Let's go with native. Hit refresh and finish. As we can observe, a variable was automatically generated and a text storing activity, get visible text, was added. To check the results, we add a write line activity inside the do container of the attach window activity, and we indicate as text the Windows Forms window variable. Let's see how we did so far. Let's hit F5 to run the workflow. And, as we can observe in the output panel, the information that's visible in the My CRM app is captured here. Awesome! Now, instead of using the screen scraping wizard, we can also add the activities that correspond to each method manually. Let's drag in the get text, get OCR text, get full text, and get visible text activities, and copy the selector used previously for all of them, because we want them to indicate the same area. We should also create variables for each of the new activities: get text, get visible text, get full text, and get OCR text, and match them in the Properties panel. To check how the text is captured by each activity, we add a write line activity, and we put everything inside. Between quotation marks, get text plus environment.newline. And let's copy this as we're going to use it again. Plus get visible text between quotations. Plus get visible text. Plus, and let's paste. And we know how it goes further. Let's press OK when we're done and give it a run. And as we can see in the output panel, each activity captured the text the same way that each of the scraping methods presented earlier did as well. Great! Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy automation! Hello, and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. Now that we've seen how UI interactions work when we're dealing with apps for which we have access to the UI elements, let's see how we retrieve text in the cases where we don't have access, like Citrix and virtual environments, when image recognition is the only solution. We will mimic working in a Citrix environment by trying to automate a simple Google search in a Chrome browser instance that runs without the UiPath extension installed. To start, let's create a new project and name it OCR Input-Output Methods, and add a description. Let's enter Demo Showcasing OCR Input and Output Methods. As a next step, let's create a sequence and change its name to OCR Input-Output Methods. we want to get information from an open Google page. But since the UI elements are not recognized, we want to base our automation on the stable parts on which we can rely that will always have the same position. In order to do so, let's add a image exists activity and indicate the Google search button, since we're confident that it will keep its position. Now, we'll create an output variable and name it Google search image, and also rename the image exists activity into image exists Google search image. Now we have to check if the image was found. We'll add an if activity and create an annotation. Right-click on the if activity and select Annotations. Keep in mind that annotations are used as a way of documenting our actions. Let's write what we want this activity to track. If the Google search button exists in the page. Under the condition, let's set Google search image equals true. If our condition is met, we want to receive a confirmation. Now we'll add a write-line activity inside then alongside the else container. Under true, we'll have the following text displayed. The image is present. And under false, the Google search image is not present. Let's see how we did so far. And as we can observe in the output panel, we have our confirmation. The image is present. Awesome. So the next step in our automation is to search for something on Google. In the design menu, we go to Recording and select Native Citrix. Now that we know the search button exists, we also know that the search bar will always be in the same relative position to the button. So, with Citrix Recording, we'll be using OCR to find the text that represents the caption of our button, and then the search bar by clicking in a position relative to the button. Inside the search bar, we select Text, Mouse, and click on the area since the whole page is seen as one image. Now we're going to click OK on the pop-up that tells us to install the UiPath extension. And within the screen scraper wizard, we can see that some text was recognized. We enter in the search text field Google Search. And we test click to verify that the button is found. We found the text. Now we need to click somewhere in a position relative to the button to access the search bar. So we set mouse position on the search button and we indicate a point on the screen inside the search bar. We ignore the pop-up. Now back to our screen scraping wizard, we select Finish and we save and exit the native Citrix recording. Now we'll rename the newly created activities in our workflow. Next, we'll move the native Citrix simulation within the condition. First, we need to modify the attach window activity. We select Indicate on Screen, and instead of the browser page content, we select the whole browser. And now we open the option menu again. Select Edit Selector, delete what we don't need, and validate. Now let's run the workflow. Moving on, we will add a type into activity and set it to Local Weather Bucharest. Then have a click image activity and indicate on screen the Google search field and also modify the name of the type into activity alongside the click image one. And we'll run the workflow once more. And it all works just as expected. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy automation. Hello and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. In this video, we'll take a closer look at data scraping. Data scraping is a functionality of UiPath Studio that enables you to extract structured data from your browser, application, or document to a database, .csv file, or even an Excel spreadsheet. Let's take an example. All Google search results have the same structure: the title at the top, a string of the URL, and a description of the web page. This structure allows Studio to easily extract the information in a structured way, as it always knows where to find it. To start, let's create a new project, name it Data Scraping Demo, and add a short description about its functionality. We'll develop a workflow that will Google data scraping videos and scrape the title, URL, and upload date of the first 100 results, and then save them into a CSV file. Let's create a sequence, rename it Demo Data Scraping, and add an annotation to document what we are trying to do. Sequence for data scraping the search results. The first thing that we need to do in order to do a search on Google is to open a browser. Let's drag an Open Browser activity and insert the Google URL. If we run it, we'll see that Internet Explorer opened. Great! The second thing that we need to do is to type into the search bar what we are looking for. So let's add a type into activity, indicate the search bar, rename the activity, and add between quotation marks, data scraping. Next, we need to actually run the search. So we'll grab a send hotkey activity, indicate again the search bar, rename it, and select enter as the key. And the last thing in our search process is to access the video's results page. For this, let's add a click activity and indicate the videos tab. Let's save and run the workflow as it is. Great! We're on the page from which we want to extract the data. Okay, time to jump to the data scraping process. Let's select the data scraping wizard from the design ribbon and choose Next. Again, as we can see, the search results have the same structure: a link at the top, a string of the URL, upload date, author, and a description. What we need to do is to teach Studio this pattern of information. We'll select the first video's title, and to create a pattern, we'll also select the second video's title. Let's rename the text column to Title, and since we also want to get the URL, let's select Extract URL and rename the column to URL. Select Next, and as we can see in the preview, we captured the titles and URLs of all the videos on the first page. We also need to get the upload date, so let's teach Studio another pattern. We'll select Extract Correlated Data. Indicate the first video's upload date, choose Next, and indicate the second video's upload date. Let's rename this column to Date, and if we look in the preview, we can see that the date is also captured. Let's click on Finish, and since we want the data from the first 100 results, which is spanned on multiple pages, we'll select Yes and indicate the Next button at the bottom of the page. As we can see, a data scraping sequence was generated for us in the current workflow, with an attach browser scope. Let's update the Extract Structured Data Results variable scope to Demo Data Scraping. Move the activity under the Click activity and delete the Attach Window activity, since we don't need it. Good. A quick recap. We Googled data scraping, accessed the video's result page, and scraped the title, URL, and upload date for the first 100 results. Now let's export all of this data to a CSV file. For that, let's add a Write CSV activity. The path is going to be Search Results CSV, and the data table is Extract Data Table. We'll add a Close Tab activity to keep it clean with no opened windows at the end of processing, and run again. We can see how multiple pages of results are browsed. Let's check the CSV file in the Projects folder. It looks great. We have 100 results. Now, let's try data scraping with a different example. we'll access on Internet Explorer Wikipedia's Olympic medal winners page and extract data from the Summer Olympic Medal Designs table. We'll start a new sequence, Wiki Data Scraping, and add an annotation regarding the sequence description. Use again the Open Browser activity and enter the URL. And now we'll use again the Data Scraping wizard. We'll select Next, and this time when we click on a cell, the table is recognized, and it can be extracted entirely by the wizard if we select Yes. We can preview the data, click Finish, and indicate that the data is not spanning on multiple pages. As we can see, a new data scraping sequence was generated for us in the current workflow with an Attach Browser scope. Again, we'll change the Extract Structured Data Results variable scope, move the activity, and delete the Attach Window activity since we don't need it. Last thing, let's add in the sequence a WriteCSV activity. We'll name the file summerolympic.csv and use as a value for data table the extract data table. We'll also add a close tab activity to keep it clean and run the new workflow. Let's check the CSV file. Great, we have all the information. And that concludes our demonstration on the basic capabilities of data scraping. Thank you for watching. Until next time, happy automation. Hello and welcome back to the RPA Developer Production Ready Essentials training. In this tutorial, we're going to learn about Find Element and Element Exists activities and learn how to use them for a robust automation. This means that the automation will work fine even if the site to automate is very slow to load and the internet connection is poor. We're going to build an automation that logs into the Acme test web page, enters the username and password, navigates through some options, resets the test data for the current user, and then successfully logs out. To start, let's create a new project. Name it Acme Demo and add a short description about the functionality of the project. For logging in, we'll use our Acme credentials. We need to retrieve them from a specified target from the Windows Credential Manager. Best practice is that the username and password will not be used as hard-coded values in the workflows. Instead, we'll obtain them every time using the getSecure credential activity. This activity retrieves the credentials as a secure string for the password and a string for the username. To be able to use this activity, we need to add a specific activities package to our project. So, we'll select the Manage Packages option from the Design ribbon and search for uipath.credentials.activities. Then we'll select Install and Save. Let's create a sequence, rename it Acme Reset User Data, and add an annotation to document what we're trying to do. This sequence automates login to Acme and resets the test data and logs out. Now we'll create a variable. Name it Credential Name and give the default value Acme in the Variables panel, since this is the name of the credential that we want to retrieve from the Credentials Manager. Moving on, we'll drag inside the sequence the getSecure credential activity, indicate Acme as the target, create a variable named Password to store the password, and another one named Username. Let's also rename the activity. Now that we have the credentials, let's open the Acme page. First, we'll grab an open browser activity, define a new variable named Acme URL, and copy the Acme address in the default value field. Next, let's insert the newly created variable in the open browser activity. At this point, we need to log in using the credentials. To do that, let's add in the do container of the open browser activity two sequences, one to log in and one to reset test data and log out. Let's run the workflow as is. And if we open the Internet Explorer app, we can see that the Acme login page is displayed. Great! We'll continue with the login part. We need to enter the username and password on the login page. As you already know from the previous demos, most of the activities have some mechanisms to retry interacting with UI elements for a certain amount of time before halting the execution. To ensure a smooth execution of the process, we can use an activity to first locate the UI element, and only after the element is located to input the data. For this, let's drag into the login sequence a find element activity. Indicate the email input field and rename it to username input. We'll also drag a type into activity. Indicate the email input field and rename it. We'll use this activity to enter the username credential, so we set as input value the variable username. Next, we'll add a type secure text activity. Indicate the password input field and rename it. We'll use this activity to enter the password credential, so we set as input value the password variable. What's left of the login part is to click on the login button, so we'll add a click activity. Indicate the login button and rename it. And let's give it a run. As we can see, the credentials are entered and the login button is selected. Great! If we return to the Internet Explorer app, we can see now that we have opened the user dashboard. Since this is a crucial step to decide whether to continue the execution of the process, we need to verify if the login was successful or not. In order to do this, we can use an element exists activity. This activity enables us to verify if a UI element exists, even if it is not visible, and stores the outcome in a Boolean variable. So let's do that and indicate the dashboard element. Then rename the activity and create a new variable. Let's say dashboard exists. One thing to consider is that if the home page loads too slowly, we'll get the message indicating that the login was unsuccessful. To prevent this, we just need to increase the timeout, which is by default of 3 seconds, to 30 seconds. Now let's grab an if activity, rename it to if dashboard exists, and use as condition the dashboard exists variable. Inside the if, we're going to add 2 log message activities. One will log the message logged in successfully in Acme platform, and the other will log could not log in to Acme platform. On this activity, we'll also change the level from info to error, and this will tell us if there was a login error in the execution of the process by storing the information in the logs. Okay, let's run it again. And if we check the output panel, we have logged in successfully. Awesome! Now it's time to move to the second part of the workflow, resetting the data and logging out. We'll add a click activity, indicate the user options, and rename it. We'll add another click activity, and because reset test data is not visible yet, we'll press F2 to pause the activity. Select again user options, and now that we have our item on screen, we can click on it. Let's rename this activity too to follow best practices. Once the 2 menu items are clicked, a new page appears. On this page, we want to click the button Reset Test Data. We'll use again Find Element to first locate the field and only then click on it. We'll indicate the Reset Test Data and rename the activity. Then we'll use a click activity. Indicate the button Reset Test Data and rename it. If we go back and click on Reset Test Data, we'll see that a pop-up appears. We'll use a Find Element activity to indicate the OK button, rename it, and we'll add a click activity that will follow the same process. And the last thing that we need to do is to add a click activity for the logout button. And close tab activity to keep it clean. Let's run it. Awesome, the workflow does exactly what we wanted it to do. We also have the option to change the input methods to simulate so that the workflow also works in the background. Let's make the updates to all the activities where this is applicable. And let's run it one last time. Great, we've successfully logged into Acme, deleted the test data, and logged out. Thank you for watching. See you soon.